that, the reason real estate investors shy away from raising private money is because, first of all, they're not using the mindset that I have. People ask me all the time, they say, Jay, what's the first thing I need to do to start raising private money? And I say, you need to own the real estate between your ears. And what I mean by that is we got to have a 180-degree shift in thinking about the traditional way to raise money or to get money and funding for your real estate deals. The traditional way, and the only way that 99.9% of real estate investors think about getting funding for their deals, is they think they have to apply for a mortgage. They think they have to abide by the rules of the lender. The old thinking, traditional thinking is he or she who has the money makes the rules. They think they got to have their credit score pulled and all that kind of stuff. And all of that, the opposite is true.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
Welcome to the Troy Kearns podcast. We discuss real estate investing, entrepreneurship, in business to help you retire and become financially free. Make sure you share this podcast with someone who could benefit from it and leave us a 5-star review. It truly helps me out. This show will mentor you towards financial freedom. If I can do it, so can you.
Welcome to the Troy Kearns podcast. Today we've got an authority on raising private money. He actually has an entire YouTube channel built on it. His name's Jay Conner. Jay, welcome to the show.
Troy, thank you so much for inviting me to come along. I'm so excited to be here because we're going to talk about private money. And the reason I'm so passionate about private money is that this one strategy has had more of an impact on my real estate invested business than any other thing I've done since 2003.
Wow. So tell me, one of the things I coach a lot of people, and a lot of guys, it's either you got it figured out or you don't. And why do you think so many people don't have it figured out when it comes to raising private money? What has made you kind of go full tilt into this, Jay?
Well, my answer and my opinion on that, the reason real estate investors shy away from raising private money is because, first of all, they're not using the mindset that I have. People ask me all the time, they say, Jay, what's the first thing I need to do to start raising private money? And I say, you need to own the real estate between your ears. And what I mean by that is we got to have a 180-degree shift in thinking about the traditional way to raise money or to get money and funding for your real estate deals. The traditional way, and the only way that 99.9% of real estate investors think about getting funding for their deals, is they think they have to apply for a mortgage. They think they have to abide by the rules of the lender. The old thinking, traditional thinking is he or she who has the money makes the rules. They think they got to have their credit score pulled and all that kind of stuff. And all of that, the opposite is true. You know what's interesting, Troy? I got 47 private lenders right now that are funding my real estate deals. And you know what? Not one of my private lenders ever heard of private money or private lending or self-directed IRAs and how they can use retirement funds to earn either tax-deferred or tax-free interest that I pay them. None of them ever heard about it until I put on my teacher hat. And my teacher hat says private money teacher. None of them ever heard about it. And so the reason, back to your question, the reason real estate investors that have heard of private money, and by the way, when I say private money, I'm not talking about hard money. I'm not talking about any kind of institutional money, because hard money is typically an institution, a brokerage that has gone out and raised money from investors to invest in their fund, and then they turn around and loan that to us real estate investors. That's not this world we're talking about. I'm talking about doing business, borrowing money from ordinary people, just like you and me, that loan us real estate investors money either from their investment capital and or their retirement funds. So the reason real estate investors that even know what private money is and getting money from individuals, from ordinary people, the reason those people shy away from it is because they think they've got to ask. They think they've got to pitch deals. They have a fear of rejection. How can you be rejected if you're never asking anybody for anything? So I get the question all the time, Jay, how in the world have you got $8.5 million that you use from project to project to project on, different single family houses? How do you get all that funding and you never ask for money? Here's the answer. Here's the secret. We separate the conversation. First of all, you got to have the right attitude. I'm leading with a servant's heart. I'm sharing this opportunity of being a private lender with ordinary people that's never heard of it. And I'm teaching them the opportunity. I'm teaching them the interest rate that I will pay. I'm teaching them the maximum loan to after repaired value. In other words, I am my own underwriter. You as the borrower, you're your own underwriter. You make the rules. You set the terms. So we teach the opportunity with not having any deal attached to that initial exposure, teaching, having a conversation. Here's a writer-downer, Troy. Desperation has got a smell to it. And the worst time to be raising private money for funding for a real estate deal is when you need it for a deal, right? Yeah. So, Troy, I'm going to take a little risk. I'm going to step out here on a branch. I'm going to ask you a question.
Sure.
Here's the question. Have you ever heard the guru on stage, the real estate guru on stage, say something like this? Oh, just get the deal under contract. The money will show up. You ever heard that?
I think everybody says that, right?
Or they'll say, oh, just get the deal under contract. Money finds good deals. That's the most stupid thing I ever heard in my life. Where's the money going to come from? Is it going to rain out of clouds, right? So
I think that's the smartest thing I've heard someone say. I probably have used that term myself. Just because that you should always find a good deal, and then you can always unload it as a wholesale deal, but you're not going to be able to raise capital last minute. I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. If you're a wholesaler and you've got a list of buyers, you've already raised the money for that business model. Right. You already know where the money's coming from for that wholesaling business model. So if you want to stay in a deal, it's the same thing. You get the money lined up first. If anybody's a smart wholesaler and they got good training, they were taught build your buyer's list first, right? 100%. Common sense, 1,000. Right? Back to the answer. First we teach, you get the money lined up. There's always going to be deals, And then how do you get your deal funded without asking for money? How do you get your deal funded without pitching a deal? You know what, Troy? Since February 2009, when I started using private money, I've never pitched a deal. Troy, I'm so excited. I want to share with you and your audience right now my exact script that I get my deal funded 100% of the time when I have a deal for funding. So, Troy, let's do just a little hypothetical assuming and set this up. And people will understand once I do this. So first of all, Troy, let's assume that you and I have been friends for a while and we know each other and we've got the trust factor. Let's assume we go to church just to really bring it home, all right? So we go to church together, we know each other, we've known each other a while, and we're friends. Now let's also assume that I have, as your friend, I have taught you the private money opportunity. You know what interest rate I pay, which by the way has been 8%, no points, no origination fees ever since 2009 through all these different market cycles. So you know the program, you know the frequency of payments, you know how I'm going to protect you, you know I'm going to name you as the mortgagee on the insurance policy and all those layers of protection. You already know all that stuff. Now, let's also hypothetically assume that you told me in our conversation when I was exposing you to this, Let's hypothetically assume that you worked for a previous employer and you still got a 401k there with that employer, that plan administrator. Let's assume it's in the stock market and you don't like it. You don't like the volatility of that, and you would really like, set rates of return, like putting money in a CD in a local bank. Let's also assume that I have introduced you to the self-directed IRA company that I recommend, and let's assume you've moved that $150,000 over to the self-directed IRA company at my recommendation, and now you are waiting for me to call you because I told you I would put your money to work for you just as soon as possible. So that's the setup. Here comes the phone call. I call this the good news phone call. Here's the script. I call up, you answer the phone, we have a little chit chat, and here's exactly what I say. Troy, I've got great news for you. I can now put your money to work. I've got a house under contract in Newport, North Carolina, with an after repaired value of $200,000. Now, the funding required for the deal is $150,000. That matches up to what you've got at the self-directed IRA company. Now, the closing on this deal is going to be next Friday. You'll need to have your funds wired to my real estate attorney's trust account by next Thursday. I'm going to have my real estate attorney email you the wiring instructions. That's the end of the conversation. The most stupid thing I could do is ask Troy, do you want to fund the deal? Of course Troy wants to fund the deal for 3 big reasons why Troy wants to fund my deal. Number one, he trusted me to move his money over to the self-directed IRA company that he never even heard of until I taught him about it and exposed it to him. The second reason Troy wants to fund my deal is because he knows I'm not going to bring a deal for him to fund that doesn't meet the criteria of the underwriting that I already taught him. Did you hear the numbers? I told Troy the after repaired value was $200,000. I also told him the funding required for the deal is $150,000. Well, that's 75% of the after repaired value. He already knows that criteria. Notice parenthetically, I did not say 75% of the purchase price. I said 75% of the after repaired value. Troy knows I'm going to bring home a big check at closing, at purchase, every time I buy. Who wants to get paid to buy houses? The third reason Troy wants to fund my deal is because he's not making any money until I put his money to work. I promised him I would. So I'm ethically obligated to invest Troy's money in my deals.
Jay, you're smooth. I mean, I'm just going to say it like that. I mean, you are very, very smooth. I feel like you're almost like a preacher slash businessman slash, I mean, you just have a really, really good delivery. Now, prior to 2009 and you starting to do this, what got you into this game? Because what I just heard there, and I know most people probably won't know, but you did the assumptive close. You didn't say, hey, the ABC, do you want to give me X or Y? You said, let's get it to work. So I think that you the other thing that you might be leaving out is you got to be smooth, because you basically directed them. You gave them what they needed to do. By the way, which IRA company, self-directed IRA company, do you like?
Yeah, currently, and I have been for 7 years now, I use Inspira. Inspira recently acquired the assets of Quest Trust, and I was with them for many years. And I've had the same rep, Colin, has been taking care of my deals. In fact, he speaks at all of my live events. But I get my deals funded in 7 days from the time the paperwork starts using Inspira.
Got it. And what did you do prior to you investing in real estate? Because, I mean, I would guess that you were a preacher. I mean, just the way you talk. That's like he's smooth.
Well, I do go to church 3 times a week, and I have been known to fill in the pulpit every now and then. But anyway.
That's good. You're natural.
So from 2003, when I started investing in single-family houses. Now, by the way, private money is for all assets of real estate. Single-family houses, apartments, self-storage, land, commercial buildings. It all just comes down to how you structure the deal. Now, all the deals that I do with single-family houses, The SEC does not regulate what we do in this world of private money, and here's why. I'm not raising money for a fund. If you're going to raise money for a fund, then that's not asset-backed debt.
Right.
That's where the SEC comes in and regulates what you can do, who you can borrow from, who you can't borrow from, and all that kind of stuff. But in this world of single-family houses, everything we do is called a one-off. What's a one-off? A one-off means you have a single-family house, could be a duplex, triplex, or quadplex, but it's one property that is being funded by a private lender, maybe 2 or 3 private lenders. They have their own promissory note. They have their own deed of trust or mortgage collateralizing that note. So it's an asset-backed debt. Therefore, SEC is not involved. But back to your question, how did I get in this world of private money? Well, I started in 2003, and I went to the local bank. Hey, look, Troy, I never even heard of hard money until 2009. And I'm not talking hard money, right? I'm talking individuals here, but I never heard of hard money brokers. So for the first 6 years, Troy, the only thing I knew to do was go to the local bank or mortgage company, get on my hands and knees, say, please fund my deal, fill out applications, have my credit score pulled, pull up my skirt for the banker to look at all my personal assets and abide by their rules, had to play by their rules. That's all I knew to do, Troy, for 6 years until January 2009. And Troy, everything changed. Everything changed. In January 2009, I was sitting right here at this desk. I called up my banker. His name was Steve. Steve had funded a ton of deals for me for those first 6 years. And I called up Steve. I told him about 2 houses that I had under contract that I wanted him to fund, loan money on. And I'm telling you, Troy, I learned like that my line of credit had been shut down. I said, Steve, what in the world are you telling me? My line of credit's been closed. We've had a great relationship for 6 years. Steve said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but you just gave me a financial crisis. I don't have a way to fund my deals. Steve said, sorry, we're not loaning money out to real estate investors. Well, Troy, I sat here at this very desk for a moment after hanging up the phone with my banker, where I no longer had a line of credit, thinking about those 2 deals I got under contract. And I thought to myself, and Troy, I want to share with you and your audience a very powerful question that I asked myself. And the power is in asking the right questions. By the way, this question I'm going to share with you and your audience will help fix any problem that anybody's got going on. I don't care if it's relationship, health, business, career, financial, I don't care. And by the way, these people running around saying every problem's an opportunity, I want to throw up. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem. Let's face the facts. Now, this problem did become an opportunity because without this problem, you and I wouldn't be on your show today. But here's the question I asked myself right after getting cut off from the bank. I said, Jay, who, the power's in who, not how. I said, who do you know that can help fix your problem? And you know what's funny? I asked myself that question, and immediately I thought of Jeff Blankenship. Jeff was a dear friend, still is. He was living in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, investing in single-family houses. And I called up Jeff. I told him what had happened. He said, well, welcome to the club, Jay. I said, what club is that? He said, it's the club of having the bank shut down your line of credit. My bank shut me down last week. I said, well, Jeff, how are you going to fund your real estate deals? He said, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no. He said, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs and how individuals can loan money to us real estate investors and get either tax-deferred or tax-free interest from the interest that we pay them? I said, Jeff, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. I said, what is private money? He said, well, I'm not exactly sure, but there's this gentleman down in Jacksonville, Florida, by the name of Ron LeGrand, that can tell us about private money. I said, well, okay, that's interesting, but what is private money? Jeff said, Jay, I don't know, but Ron says we can get a lot of it really, really fast. So I went to my very first real estate investing conference down in Florida to learn about private money. And Troy, I learned this whole mindset of no asking, begging, selling, persuading, talking anybody into anything, but putting your program together that you're going to offer. You know, I came back home, Troy. I put my program together as to what I was going to teach and share. I was able to raise over $2 million in less than 90 days of new funding that I didn't have prior to this world of private money. That was all through my own connections.
Wow.
And you know what's interesting? None of them had ever heard of private money until I taught them about it. And because of that problem, our business tripled in 2009. Here's why. You may recall, barely, you're not hardly old enough to remember, but anyway, you may recall back in 2009, all these foreclosures that were hitting.
Brother, I was in the middle of it.
All these foreclosures that were hitting the market, and the banks weren't loaning money. Well, let's think about that. Lots of foreclosures, banks aren't loaning money. You had to have all the cash to buy those foreclosures.
For sure.
So my business tripled because I had all this private money and all these foreclosures to choose from. So our business tripled that first year because of having access to the private money and the funding.
I actually loved that time. That was probably the most fun that I've ever had in my entire life was during the foreclosure crisis. In fact, I wanted it to happen so bad again that I stayed in real estate, selling real estate for another 10 years because of it, because I thought that the market was going to collapse again. For those of you guys who aren't around back when what Jay was referring to, I mean, he's not lying. Like it can happen. And for those people who went through it, like if you had an American Express card, they shut down your fund. And if you had a bank loan, there was a bunch of websites that were keeping track of all the banks that were going out of business. And if you had cash or knew how to get cash, I mean, you were very rare, number one. And number two, you made a ton of money, because that's what started me in my career as well. Is like, I sold 2,200 homes in those 5 years that were foreclosures. And those foreclosures made a lot of people money because the banks were taking whatever they could get for them at that point in time. Jay, for someone who's new, and as you know, it's pretty scary. You're pretty smooth, Jay. And it's pretty scary for people that are worried about saying rejection. A lot of them won't even pick up the phone to call anybody, as you probably have learned over the time. What are the steps that you could teach people that are uncomfortable, Jay, that are like they're worried about the fear of rejection? You made it sound so eloquent, and they're worried about forms, and they're worried about being named as a secondary beneficiary on the insurance policy. How do they get that information? Are you able to help them with that?
There's a direct correlation between the lack of confidence and fear. Mm-hmm. Lack of confidence and fear. I don't know which comes first. They're sort of closely related, right? So when someone can fix the level of confidence to where you can talk with surety and come across truly from your heart that you know what you're talking about, then how do you get that? It begins with knowledge. It begins with knowledge, but it even begins before knowledge. Why are you in this business? Why do you want to be in this business? If you've got the mindset that this business is all about you, or this business is all about me, then we're starting at the wrong point. What I've discovered in this business, Troy, as to whether I'm talking with a family that's facing foreclosure, or if I'm talking with a new potential private lender, it's all about them. Yeah. It's all about me serving them and bringing them a solution to their problem. All 47 lenders, my private lenders, had a problem. They were not happy with the stupid returns getting at the local bank, right? Mm-hmm. So I came along with a way to fix that problem for them. So how do we up the confidence level? Knowledge. How do you get the knowledge? Well, hey, look, you've been hearing me talk about teaching people this opportunity and having my teacher hat on. Yeah. Well, you got to know what you're going to teach, right? Like, what in the world are you going to teach? Well, here's how I can serve your listeners to your show, Troy. And that is inside my book, which is titled Where to Get the Money Now. And the subtitle is How and Where to Get Money for Your Real Estate Deals Without Ever Relying on Hard Money Lenders or Institutional Lenders. Inside this book, I have got in one chapter in this book, I've got the exact program for you to teach. I mean, just duplicate what I teach because it seems to work pretty well. But I've got the program in the book. I've got all kinds of strategies in the book, where to get the money now, such as private lender luncheons, how to put on a luncheon to where, I mean, my very first private lender luncheon, Troy, I raised $969,000 with no deals attached whatsoever. They gave me a verbal pledge. Well, what did I do? I bought them lunch. I invited 20 people of my own connections. I bought them lunch. I did my little 20-minute PowerPoint presentation, which is teaching the program. And then, I met with them one-on-one that were interested afterwards. They told me what I had, what they had to work with and fund the deals. Anyway, the book is $20 at Amazon. Don't go to Amazon. Let me give you the book for free. If you'll just cover shipping, I'll autograph the book. I'll 3-day express it. You can pick up my book, Where to Get the Money Now, at jayconner.com/book. Again, I'm an ER, not an OR. That's jayconner.com/book. I'll rush it right out to you.
Jay, you are a smooth operator. I'll tell you what, I feel like you should be speaking next to Tony Robbins. You're very, from the minute we hit the word go on the podcast, you've transformed. I mean this in the utmost respect. I don't mean this as you are a showman, and a teacher, and you come across as so authentic. It's hard not to like you. I can see why it's not a problem for you to raise capital. So for people who maybe they need to work on their personality, I'm sure you've done a lot of self-help books just by watching your inflection, your tonality, how you call me by the first name. Right away, I'm like, this guy is a student of the game. So, and now you're sharing that knowledge with other people through this book. What besides your book, what other tools have helped you out along the way?
What other tools as far as raising private money?
Well, I mean something more personal than that. With the way that you use my name so much, I'm very aware of that, and I'm like, this guy's smooth. Like it's the Dale Carnegie How to Win Friends and Influence. It's the name is the most powerful thing that you can use. And if you guys are paying attention, he's probably dropped my name 100 times, and I do the same thing. And so so game recognizes game is what I'll say, and I'm like, Jay is smooth. And so he's a guy who studies, practices, and preaches, which you don't see often. Usually what you have is somebody who gets up on there, knows no idea what they're talking about, doesn't know how to articulate what they're saying about. And I'm very glad. A lot of times I'll do a podcast and I'm sitting there drowning out, just like going in my la land. And when I'm watching you speak, I'm like, this guy is eloquent. He's masterful. And it's one of those things where, you've passed the teacher, so to speak, when you went to Ron LeGrand, because I think you're more engaging than he is.
Yeah, I have been to quite a few of Ron's events, and Ron and I are sort of like yin and yang, right? It's like, the personalities are very different. But I will tell you, Ron LeGrand is one of the most brilliant individuals I've ever met in my life. Well, I thank you for the compliment. Dale Carnegie, yes. Rule number 6 in Dale Carnegie's list of human relation principles is, remember, a person's name is the sweetest sound to them in any language. Rule number 6 100%. From Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends. I went to Dale Carnegie's human relations course when I was 24 years old. And that was a game changer right there. So I'll share this. You said that I'm authentic, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I'll share with you and your audience when I was 23 years old, and the first half of me being 24 years old, I was in a very, very dark place. Mm-hmm. Alcohol, drugs, no friends, working in the restaurant industry, 80 hours a week, no life, no church, no God. Yeah. I mean, it was pot, weed. Yeah. I mean, it was a very dark place. And thank goodness I woke up one morning and I said, you know what, Jay, there's got to be a better way. And so I found myself in the self-help book section in the bookstore. And I'd never been in the self-help section, but I knew I needed some help. And it didn't need to be self because self was not getting it done. Anyway, so I came across this book, and Troy, this book changed my outlook on life. It changed my trajectory. It changed the way I looked at life. And here's the book. Thank goodness it's still in print. And the name of the book is University of Success by Og Mandino.
Ooh, I love Og Mandino. I did not hear of that book. I know about the Greatest Salesman.
Yeah. And so what Og did is he brought together a collection of many, many different authors in the self-improvement world. And he put together semesters in the book, and different lessons. You got so many lessons in different semesters, books about that thick. And so in the book you get exposed to so many creators of how you should be thinking about life and how you should be going about life, to begin with. And so I read the book. I still have that book at the end of my leather sofa in the sunroom where I live when I'm not working. And I mean, it's underlined and the pages are bent down and it's highlighted and all this stuff. But yeah, I don't know who is credited with this quote, but I love this quote. And the quote is, "Your destiny is determined by the books you read and the people you meet." And so how in the world have I been so blessed to grow in this world of real estate investing and mindset and et cetera? And that is the masterminds, the mastermind groups that I have been so active in for so many years, and the relationships and the knowledge and the opportunities and the doors that have been opened by me being in a group of like-minded people. Napoleon Hill in his book, Think and Grow Rich, he talked about the mastermind in one of his chapters.
Yes.
And I just can't endorse enough. The reason I'm thinking of mastermind groups is because of that quote, the books you read and the people you meet. Well, where are you going to meet the people? Really high quality mastermind groups, one of the best places to meet people that are like-minded like you.
Jay, how do people learn more about you? How do they get a hold of you? You said you have a YouTube channel. Can you break that down for everybody as well?
Sure. So you can go to YouTube and search for Jay Conner, the Private Money Authority. But if they really want to interact with me and get some more juice twice a week, Monday mornings and Thursday mornings, then come on over and hang out with me like you're hanging out with Troy here on his show. Come over to my podcast. And the name of my podcast is Raising Private Money with Jay Conner. I'm now in my 8th year. We got almost 800 episodes.
Wow.
That are all there, and that's on all the podcast platforms.
You're the Joe Rogan of private money.
Say what?
You're the Joe Rogan of private money.
I would like to think so. I would like to think so. Yes. But I'm always interviewing other real estate investors that have already raised private money, and I interview them on how they go about raising their private money.
Jay, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I would like to extend an invitation for you to come speak at one of our masterminds that we do have coming up. You mentioned the word. I'm sorry I was running late on the beginning of this thing. You've been an exquisite guest. I wish I would have planned more time. Would you be willing, A, to come back on another podcast to take a deeper dive? I'd like to know more about your personal story. We have some things in common, alcohol, drugs, things like that we both have in common. I think your story is inspirational. I think we've just scratched the surface of it. And I think that you're a type of guy that I'd like to surround myself with if you'd be so generous with your time.
Troy, I would be honored and blessed. Thank you so much. Yes.
Guys, make sure that you follow what Jay Conner is talking about. I'm telling you, he has got I talk to a lot of guys who are BS artists. I talk to people all over the country. This guy is genuine. He's continuing to reinvent himself. I didn't ask him how old he was, but based on the fact that we've both been in the career for a while and that he's on a podcast and I'm on a podcast, it means he is adapting and changing and learning. and this is somebody that you want to pay attention to, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Make sure you give Jay a 5-star review. Jay, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Troy. God bless you.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/moneyguide. That's jconner.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with